Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to SBC 21's Leadership Forward. I am Candi Cylar, Project Manager and Experience Director for SBC 21. It is a pleasure to see you on post Ash Wednesday, post Valentine's Day, or how about we just celebrate love all the way around 365 days a year. I am so excited to be with you today. I have not been on a lunch and learn this year. So excited. Welcome to 2024. Happy New Year. If I have not seen you already, today is going to be amazing. Now, if you have joined us before as part of our lunch and learns, then you know you bring your own lunch and you learn something. And so the first question always is, what's for lunch today? So drop in the chat, tell me where you're watching from and what you're eating on. I'm just going to sip on this water because I can't eat and talk to y'all at the same time. What's for lunch today and where are you watching from? I am in Atlanta, GA, where it's sunny outside because we had rain all earlier this week. So I am thankful for sunshine on this Thursday. What about you? Where are you watching from? And what are you having for lunch? All right. So fiber, seafood, chicken, and barbecue later. Let's get started. Thank you all so much for joining us today. If you've been following us or if you're new, welcome to Leadership Forward. This is an opportunity for us to show the best and brightest among Black and white and red, yellow, blue leaders, but strengthening the Black church for the 21st century has an opportunity to offer you something wherever you are in the world at lunchtime. So we invite you to join us for lunch and we bring some good stuff to you. So our goal today is hopefully you will be educated, enlightened, and encouraged to do better or do something differently. Okay. So today I have one of my colleagues with me, so it won't be a long introduction. I'm excited. I'm always grateful to work with him because he's an amazing human being. And that is Reverend Kevin Kosh the second, Junior. I think it's only two of y'all, right?
Junior, yep.
Junior. Okay. All right. So in this virtual lunch and learn, we will explore the significance of Black History Month, the rich legacy of HBCUs, and he's going to give some tips, tools, and techniques on guiding through and navigating the college admissions process. So grateful for Rev Kev, who is now SBC 21's national network of young adults. I don't know why every word is tie-tongue today, but he's the National Network of Young Adults Director and Strategist for SBC 21. But in his previous work, he has been a college chaplain through the Wesley Foundation. So he's bringing his wealth of knowledge to share it, drop some dimes on us today for the 21st century. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my brother, Kevin Kosh. On behalf of Dr. Michael L. Boyd and the rest of the SBC 21 team, we welcome you. We ask that you chat. All right. Looking forward to dialoguing with you, and I'm going to turn it over to my brother, Kevin.
All right. Good afternoon. I hope everybody is enjoying their lunch. I am Reverend Kevin Kosh Jr., also known as Rev Kev, and I am the director and the strategist of the National Network of Young Adults. So I just want to stop and say that I was the person that was eating ice cream and chips for the lunch and learn. It's my Black History treat. Did you know, as we prepare to talk about Black history, did you know that George Crumb, also known as George Speck, is given the credit for inventing the potato chip? Black history fact. So I might not be eating too well, but I'm celebrating Black history. And then there was a man by the name of Augustus Jackson, who is known as the father of ice cream. He didn't invent ice cream, but he's known as the father of ice cream for his tech manufacturing techniques for ice cream, who is also a black man. So when I say my Black History treats, it's a way that I can feel guilt-free for this lunch and learn. But let's jump right in it. When you think about Black history, where are you stationed in life? Perhaps you're a school teacher, perhaps you're a pastor, perhaps you are a parent. When you think about wherever you are, what Black history is associated with it. As a father, I love to have water fights with my son. And did you know that the inventor of the pump water gun was a Black person? So there's all this history around us. Yes, the super soaker was invented by an African American. So when we talk about history, why is it important? I think Black history is important, especially for such a time as this, because legislation is being passed that says that some history can't be taught, or some people will never know the history. Sometimes when we look at our past and we look at how far we have come, we don't want to actually acknowledge the tension that brought us to the place that we are now. And if we really want to lean into the work of reconciliation and healing, then we have to be willing to acknowledge some of the things that has happened in our country. So at this point, I ask for us to pull up the slides and we can start talking a little bit about Black history. So I asked the team to pull up the slide. I can't see the screen if it's up. I'm looking in the chat. I see that we have a retired teacher with us. But what exactly is Black History Month? Black History Month is that time for Americans to acknowledge key Black figures from our past and our present. It is an opportunity to spotlight and celebrate the achievements that African Americans have accomplished despite the history of racism and oppression. So, Black History Month, when we talk about Black History Month, sometimes just because of the racial tension that we can't get away from, whether you're in school, in the church, or wherever you find yourself stationed, somebody might ask, so why do we even need a Black History Month if people are coming together? I think it's important to understand the origins of Black history to kind of help us answer that question. But maybe that isn't your question. Maybe you just don't know about Black history. How old is Black history? Where did it come from? This is what we're going to dive into. So I asked for us to go to the next slide. This is coming live from one of the youth at one of our local churches. They wanted to know, how old is Black History Month? How old is Black History Month? And that is a great question. Let's dive right in. The history of Black History Month begins in 1915. Did you know that? Half a century after the 13th Amendment abolished slavery in the United States. In September of 1915, the Harvard-trained historian Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who happens to be an Omega man, and the prominent minister Jesse E. Moreland founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, which is now known today as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and is an organization dedicated to researching and promoting the achievements Black Americans and others of African descent had contributed. In 1926, this group sponsored the first National Negro History Week. So if we had to condense all of that right there, you have Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and then you have Jesse E. Moreland. They come together and they started Negro History Week. They started Negro History Week because as they looked at the history books and they looked at lessons being taught, they noticed that the contributions of African and African Americans were missing or they were highly skewed. So they saw an issue and then they decided to meet a need. And part of meeting that need was simply telling the story, doing the research, and sharing it with others. But before we had a month to celebrate, it was just a week. It was just a week. And I think it's important for us to kind of understand how we go from a month to a week. So if we go to that next slide, we can see why Black History Month went from a week to a month. Before there was a Black History Month, it was only a week-long celebration. Dr. Woodson selected Negro History Week to be the second week of February to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, both who played prominent parts in the progression for African Americans as we know it today. And so when you just think about why is Black History Month in February, you get a lot of answers. Some people say, oh, because they want to give us the shortest month or because of the man. Well, as we have learned so far, Black History Month was started by two Black men. And the reason why it's in February is because it is to coincide with the birthdays of both Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. But if it is just a week, how exactly did it go to a month? We can go to the next slide. The Negro History Week, it inspired schools, Black churches, and communities nationwide to organize local celebrations. It established and to establish history clubs and host performances and lectures. By the late 1960s, thanks in part to the civil rights movement and a growing awareness of Black identity, Black students at Kent State University turned the week-long celebration into a month-long time of Black identity and recognition. So it was because of the young adults. Young adults can change the world. The young adults on Kent State University, they took what they saw before them with Negro History Week and they decided to celebrate it for a month on their campus. So if you are a young adult, perhaps you're at one of our Black College Fund schools, know that you can change the world, that you can make a difference. We're celebrating Black History Month because college students decided to look at their history and to celebrate. And so as you have those celebrations, those from those students at Kent State University in 1976, President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month, calling upon the public to, as what the president said, to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And so, when it comes to Black History Month and how we got to where we are today, Black History Month, thanks to people like Dr. Carter G. Woodson and Minister Jesse Moreland, they come together and say we're going to do this research and we're going to celebrate our accomplishments for this week. And we're going to encourage the churches. We're going to encourage the schools. We're going to encourage our community to embrace its heritage. This is at the grassroots level. And from that grassroots level, when you plant that seed, young adults are inspired and they say, we're going to build on that. And it goes from a week to a month. And I'm pretty sure that those students didn't recognize who was watching them, but the president was watching. And the president then says, we're going to make this recognized by the whole country. This Black History Month, this month-long celebration to acknowledge the too often forgotten contributions of African Americans. And so, in that same sense, realize that we're not just celebrating a past history. If you're here, realize that you are history. You are making history. You are helping others know their story and move forward. And we want to commend you for that part, Black history. And if we're going to talk about Black history, we're going to have to talk about one of my favorite things, HBCUs. Do you know anybody who went to a HBCU? If you went to a HBCU, drop your HBCU in the chat. Do you work at a HBCU? Do you have a granddaughter? Do you have a niece or a nephew at a HBCU? We want to take this Black History Month to shout out to all of the HBCU grads and the people who are working at HBCUs. I see the chat is blowing up when it comes to what HBCU. Yes, yes, we got Tuskegee in the building. We got Southern University, Baton Rouge. We got Texas Southern. We got HU. Come on, Kentucky State University, Jackson State University. We got so many HBCUs. I'm a graduate of Russ College in Holly Springs, Mississippi. I see Russ College in the chat. Yes, all corn, and that's how you gotta say it. All corn. We have so many I see you in the building. The SWAC is in the building. We have so many HBCUs. And why are HBCUs important? Again, if we're going to talk about HBCUs, it's always good to go back to why they were created in the first place so that we can see how far we have come. Historical Black college and universities. So if you don't know what HBCU stands for, historically Black colleges and universities are institutions that were established prior to 1964 with the principal mission of educating Black Americans. These institutions were founded and developed in an environment of legal segregation and provided access to higher education. They contribute substantially to the progress that Black Americans have made. Although HBCUs were founded to educate Black students, they enroll students of other races and ethnicities as well. The student makeup of HBCUs have changed over time. In 2022, non-Black students made up 24% enrollment at HBCUs compared to just the 15% in 1976. So when you look at the demographics of HBCUs, it is, even though it's historically Black in its nature or in its inception, it still tends to all students of regardless of your race or your ethnicity. But some people might say, well, we don't want to think about the past. And because you can go to a predominantly white institution or whatever institution you choose, why do we need HBCUs? I think one of the things when we get hit with questions like that, or if we have them ourselves, it's always good to look at the facts. So here are some statistics on what HBCUs are responsible for and why they are important. There are currently 107 HBCUs across the United States, enrolling more than 228,000 students. HBCUs are responsible for 75% of Black PhDs. So if you're a PhD, drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat. You are a part of our Black history. HBCUs are responsible for 80% of Black federal judges. Do we have any judges watching? Do you know any Black judges? 85% of Black judges went to an HBCU. 50%, so half of Black attorneys come from an HBCU. 75% of Black military officers come from, you guessed it, an HBCU. 40% of Black dentists, HBCUs. 50% of Black pharmacists, HBCUs. And 46% of Black business executives come from HBCUs. So let's kind of put this in perspective. HBCUs only represent 3% of all four-year nonprofit institutions, but enroll 10% of all Black students. Around 73% of all students attending HBCUs are Pell Grant eligible. What does that mean? They come from low-income backgrounds, while roughly 52% are first-generation college students. So HBCUs, whether even if you take the race away and you just look at the income of it, low income students or first time people going to college, HBCUs are a great place for you to be nurtured, for you to grow in your skills, for you to grow in your calling, because these places are made with you in mind. So if you're thinking about college, one of the things that happens is, how are we going to pay for school? How are we going to pay for this? My dad, he put it to me like this. He always said, go to school because grades is money. But even with me making good grades, I still wondered, how can I pay for school? And the cost of school is just going up. So if you look at the cost, it costs students 27% less to attend an HBCU compared to other institutions. 27% less. Most HBCUs, when it comes to admissions, most HBCUs require that students have a GPA of 2.5 and a SAT score of 900 or higher to get in. The average GPA for high school students in the US is a 3.0, while the average SAT score is around 1,000. And so when we look at this, HBCUs are a perfect place for you to go and get a quality, competitive education in a family environment with class sizes where you are seen at a fraction of the cost at other institutions. So just money wise, HBCUs are a great choice. I went to a large school. I found myself kind of getting lost in the mix, but the smaller schools, I got to meet the professors. The professors got to meet me, and they got to see what I'm gifted at, what areas I need to work in, and I got that hands-on training that I really needed. And so I'm forever grateful for my HBCU experience at Rusk College, one of our Black college front schools, because it helped me grow in my faith and my profession. But perhaps you are at your church, or perhaps you have children and they are on their way to college. How can they prepare themselves for college? Here are some quick tips that can kind of help us know how to navigate the landscape of college admissions so that we can be successful. I'm going to give you 7 things for your students to be looking at. The first thing is a self-assessment. So when you're looking for schools, who are you as a student? That means your GPA. If you have taken your SAT or your ACT, what kind of scores do you have? Have you thought about the type of study habits that you have or that you want to build? Who are you as a student? Self-assessment. And then you also want to say, who am I as a person? Going to school is not just about getting the grades, it's about networking. It's about growing who you are as an individual. It's about being exposed to so many opportunities that God has for you that you might not even recognize. So, self-assessment, who are you? And who are you as a student? What are your grades looking like? What are your test scores looking like? Because understanding this will also help you position yourself for those institutions that can honor and improve those things so that you can really get a bang for your buck and you can receive the resources you need through your matriculation. So, self-assessment. 2, your university fit. Your university fit. So, when you're looking for schools, you do a self-assessment, but then number 2 is the university fit. I had a college admissions person tell me that going to school or looking for a school is almost like finding a good shoe. Sometimes you can really want a shoe, but then it looks good, but when you put it on your feet are hurting. Your feet are hurting. And so sometimes we need a school that's a good fit for us. It's not just about the name, it's the whole collection of what makes that school. What is the culture of that school? And does it fit what you need? So if you haven't been on a college tour, visit your campus, get a feel for what the faculty and the administration are like, what the everyday life is like, because not every institution is the same through and through. And so knowing what the institution is like and who you are can kind of decide what a good fit is. I fell in love with Russ College because that small environment, that family environment, but that mentality that you can change the world, that was who I was. And I found the institution that had that same ethos about it. And the motto, by their fruit ye shall know them. So all the graduates that I were running into, they went to this small school, but they were making a big impact wherever they go. Number 3, story building and brainstorming. Story building and brainstorming. So when you are filling out applications, there are times where you're going to be writing essays. How are you crafting your story so that your story is jumping out? Because people have to read through those essays. How are you crafting a true, powerful, yet authentic story? How are you meeting the criteria so that your applications are strong? So what are the deadlines? What are they requiring? Not all college applications require the same things. So when you're looking at these schools, look at what applications they are requiring and what the deadlines are. This getting your stuff in on time, getting your stuff in correctly, and a strong essay. All of those things can help you with your story building and your brainstorming. The number 4, this is something that I love and that I still use today, and I can use more of it. Number 4, editing. Period. Editing. So you have been going through college applications and you're going through this with people. You have read this 1,000 times. Your eyes can get tired and you can miss some things. Have people read over your work. Have somebody edit your work so that it is error free. This helps in crafting a strong application. Editing, editing, editing. Who is editing your work? Number 5, recommendation letters. Recommendation letters. So I see people dropping in the chat. You can schedule a campus tour, sororities, fraternities, sponsored tours. Yes. So when it comes to recommendation letters, you want to have diverse recommendation letters from professors. Have you been involved in community service? Are you doing extracurricular activities? All of those things, those people can provide great recommendation letters. Your pastor, your employer, your coach, your teacher. These are all people who know you from different areas of life. But what this does is it paints the picture of who you are as a holistic student. You being on somebody's campus makes the campus brighter. And this helps paint that picture for them to see, oh, this is who that student is. Strong recommendation letters just further assist in people understanding who you say that you are. So recommendation letters, have strong recommendation letters. Number 6, in the words of Reverend Kai Sr., grades is money. So scholarship support. Scholarship support. Number 6 is scholarship support. How are you going to pay for school as you are going through school? This is something to be thinking about on the onset of your college applications. So, great news. GBHEM, General Board of Higher Education and Ministry, they offer tons of scholarships and loans for that matter. All you have to do is go to gbhem.org and you can see what scholarships you can qualify for through the United Methodist Church. So since we were talking about HBCUs, I'm going to do a shameless plug here as I support Black colleges. The United Methodist Church has 11 historically Black institutions affiliated with it, Russ College being one of them. By attending a UMC church, you can qualify for various scholarships. Again, just go to gbhem.org and see what you might apply for or qualify for. So, scholarship opportunities are important. If you also look on the internet, you can use your smart device, look up various scholarships. And once you start crafting your scholarship letters, you kind of get into a flow of it. Sometimes you might alter your scholarship letter for the particular scholarship, but it doesn't have to be hard. And I also realize that you might not always get the biggest scholarship. Sometimes you get those little scholarships and they add up. I've gotten scholarships as low as $35, but I had lunch for that day. I was able to get my lunch and learn on. But you get some bigger scholarships as well. So continue to get your scholarships out there, to continue to see what opportunities are out there, because you might be afraid, like I was, just to put something out there. I'm not the best writer, or somebody has a better story than me. Showing up matters. Our young adults, our students, they need to know that showing up and sitting at the table matters. Sometimes dollars go to waste just because nobody filled out the application and turned it in. So please, please, please go to the various websites and see what scholarships opportunities are available for you, because this will alleviate a lot of financial stress as you matriculate through school. So scholarship support. And then number 7, the last thing that I'll stop with is interview prep. Interview prep. Sometimes you might get called in. People want to meet you after they have read your beautiful essays, after you have got them in on time, after you've filled out all this scholarship information. They want to know who you are, and you might have to sit in front of somebody. And if you don't have that experience with being interviewed, you might be a little bit nervous. But the great thing is that you can do interview prep beforehand, and that can help prepare you for your college interview. So these are just some of the steps that our high school graduates can look at if they are trying to navigate this college admission process. But if you're a church, say you're a church, and you're saying, I want to be involved, but I don't know how I can be involved. Say you have a school next to you. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. One of the HBCUs here in Missouri is Harris Stowe State University. I talked to their student engagement, and I talked to their president, and I said, do you have it? So if I'm at a church, how can a church help a college? Sometimes we just got to ask simple questions like this. They had a whole rubrics already typed up on ways that churches and pastors can collaborate with their institutions. They have engagement opportunities. So when it comes to choir performances, have you considered, does that school have a choir? You could invite them to your church, or you could support them at different events that they have. So choir performances is one way that you can start building relationships with the institutions in your area. You can host a college day at your church, an annual college day, where you're raising funds and awareness for your colleges. So when I look at the chat and I see so many people saying the different schools that they went to, local churches, they do it. We just have to get the story out there. Have an annual day to support the school that is near you, to support the campus ministries that are on those campuses, to build that relationship and invite people to engage in leadership opportunities on their campus, but also within your facilities or within the community. Speaking opportunities. Sometimes schools are looking for people to pray or lead Bible studies, or even speaking at your church. So this Sunday, in Jackson, Mississippi, at Anderson United Methodist Church, the president of Rusk College is going to be preaching there. And they are having a Rusk College Day. The choir is going to be singing. And so there are different speaking opportunities. You can have an annual day at your church, choir performances, special events, and projects. These are all ideas of faith education. Be involved in the planning committees on the campus. Talk to the student life people. They are trying to figure out how to develop holistic students on their campus. You can be a part of that process, but you just have to reach out and establish days of giving. If your local church isn't doing this, check out your annual conference. They may be doing some things. Check out BMCR. They may be doing some things. Check out SBC 21. They are doing some things. And when we come together, we can make a difference. So we talked about Black history. We talked about HBCUs, and we talked about the college admission process for your students and for your congregation. We're going to leave some time now to bring Candi back in and to kind of deal with any questions or contacts that we have in the chat as we continue to go forward for this lunch and learn.
That was awesome, Rev Kev. So listen, while we're kind of wrapping up everything, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A, or you can drop them in the chat, but we will happily answer those questions for you today. Rev Kev, thank you so much for sharing that information. I've been taking copious notes because I work with a group that plans HBCU College Fair every year. And so we're getting ready March the 2nd. Shameless plug, if you're in the Metro Atlanta area, we're having it at Charles Drew High School in Riverdale on March 2nd from 10 to 2. So this is amazing information, and I want to be able to share this with the students. So as we're entertaining questions, I just want to jump back on a few things as you were sharing with our congregations, because we know we have leaders and pastors that are typically listening, and people are always looking for an opportunity to do some outreach. And so you just named some amazing ways that they can connect with their local colleges. But it's an opportunity for outreach, because if you connect with those students, you never know, they will bring a friend, they may join a church, the local professors, presidents, administration that are in the city is a great time. So let's see, we have a question in the chat. Question in the Q&A. What are the application fees? Can you answer that question? We can't hear you.
So application fees will vary from campus to campus. Sometimes if you call like the college admissions people, sometimes they might even waive the fees. So even when it goes back to the self-assessment piece and your SAT scores and your university fit, when you start looking into your university, you can see how much that is. And if you're unsure, you can call the admissions office on that campus and they can direct you. But then also ask the question, how can I get these fees waived? You'll be surprised at some of the answers you get. So just make sure that you call. And I also see in the chat that the Black College Fund, again, there's a lot of connections. If you go to the Black College Fund, just look it up online, the Black College Fund through the United Methodist Church, and there are different opportunities there as well. And some of those fees also may be waived. So yeah, check out the Black College Fund.
Oscar just dropped in what I was going to say, the Common Black College app. So there's an app where you can pay one fee and it will give you access to multiple schools. So you're not paying those fees over and over again. So that's a great way to save on those college application fees. So there's also a question for you, Rev Kev. How can churches engage students in social justice activities like getting them out to vote, which is extremely important this year?
So again, one of the things that churches can do as you are meeting with the different people on those college campuses, sometimes your church can just provide the space. Providing space goes along. Your church might be a voting center. I've known several churches to do that. Sometimes people want to let their community knows what their platforms are going to be. So voter literacy, having these places in your congregation makes your church not just a place of worship, but it makes it a place of community engagement. So see how your church can open its doors to invite people in so that the congregation and community can learn about the candidates, and more people might be inclined to vote when they have the literacy to do so. And
Yeah.
so just see how your church can provide the space for that, and that can go very far. I see somebody in the chat, they talked about how can they get involved. They said, don't forget move-in days or move out days. Students have trouble moving stuff in. And if you just gather some of your people, the schools need volunteers. Help
Yeah.
move somebody's trunk in.
Yeah,
It means
absolutely.
a lot.
And I'll go back to the voting. If you connect with some organizations locally to have a voter registration drive in your church, that is huge. And you will be surprised. Sometimes we assume, oh, everybody in my church is registered to vote. Well, you never know. And even if you're not having it on Sunday, you can host a voter registration drive on other days and other locations so that we can make sure that we have people getting out to vote, because it's going to be crucial this year. Was crucial every 4 years, but this year even more so.
Yeah. And so I'm seeing in the chat, like, how are we kind of as churches, how can we get with our colleges and young adults so that we can encourage like these movements of social justice? Whether we're talking about Black history in that it was a need for social justice. The stories weren't being told.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the laws, because of various patent rights and things like that, people weren't able to tell their story. So we have to be able to spot those needs and be able to frame that from past, present, and what that means for the future. HBCUs, they address social justice issues. And our young adults, we're trying to figure out how can we be a part of those same things, but sometimes we need it to be lined out for us so that we can see how we aren't just making a difference today, but we stand on the shoulders of giants and we are responsible for continuing that work. And so, social justice activities, figure out what is going on in your community, what movements are already made, and your church doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. Just be a part of your community, and that can spark so much when it comes to encouraging young adults to want to get involved with the cause of social justice.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things I wanted to highlight is go back to GBHEM, just reminding people to find what are those 11 HBCUs that are under the United Methodist Church. I know you mentioned your school, which was great, but you want to share some of the other schools with us?
Yeah, so some of our other schools, we have Payne College in Augusta, Georgia. You
Mhm.
have Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia. You have Bennett College for women. You have Claflin College. You have Houston Tillotson University. You have Wiley College. You have Bethune-Cookman University. You have Philander Smith now University. So there are tons of schools, and then even we have a graduate school. So let's shout out Gammon Theological Seminary, a part of the ITC, Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta, Georgia. But yes, there are 11 schools, undergraduate HBCUs affiliated with the United Methodist Church.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I don't think people even know how much rich history there is there and how much assistance that you could possibly get. So we have to do more and more of our research. Any last words for the people before we sign off for today?
So just making so somebody just dropped it in the chat. So if you want to look at all of our beautiful Black college fund schools, Dr. Crystal Banks, she just dropped it in the chat so you can check out that list. It's Black History Month. We're talking about strengthening the Black church. Did you know that Philander Smith University, one of their graduates, his name was Dr. James Cone, and Dr. James Cone is known as the father of Black theology, the father of Black theology, a graduate from one of our Black college fund schools. So just find fun ways to just do some history facts with your local church and see all the history and the knowledge that you are getting, because guess what? You are making history, a part of history. Keep impacting history.
Amen. Thank you, Rev Kev. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Don't forget, thank you for joining the Black History edition of the Leadership Forward Lunch and Learns. But don't forget, we're back again next month, third Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, and what's that, 10 a.m. Pacific. And next month, we have none other than Olu Brown, and he will be talking through his book, 4D Impact. So if you haven't read it, come. If you have read it, come, because there's an opportunity for you to ask questions and engage in a deeper level. So we are excited that you have come today. We're excited for those that are going to watch this later. We're excited for the young people that you are going to engage, just because Rev Kev has reminded us of how important it is to engage our young Black college students and to remember our history. I had no clue. I think I must have forgotten about why we do it in February. I think I forgot. I think I knew. But anyway, thank you for enlightening us on that today. February is still an amazing month because it's also my birthday month.
Okay.
So, yes. So have an amazing day. If you haven't already, make sure that you make it amazing, because you have control of that. We thank God for you, and we will see you next month.
All right.